Well, for those of you that loved the Russell Westbrook experiment, I apologize to you as somebody who did not love the Russell Westbrook experiment. He is no longer going to be a Denver Nugget.
That's not necessarily true.
It is true.
It's not true.
It's
not
true.
necessarily true. The only
Because then
reason
the
why
Nuggets are going to have to pay him.
Right, but
why would you pay that player?
Well, this is the way. You use the mid-level exception on him. The reason why he is opting out is because he can just make a little bit more money on essentially the same deal that he was playing on. It's not guaranteed that he's gone. Him opting out does not necessarily mean that he gets a longer-term deal. He is a year-to-year player.
You know why he's not going to be a Denver Nugget in 2025? Because David Adelman, when he took over as interim head coach, when you're a coach that's sitting there and you have a massive personality that just wants all the minutes and is sitting there just staring at you like, when is it my time? Adelman probably spent too much bandwidth, too much mental energy expended on managing the minutes of Russell Westbrook and how to utilize Russell Westbrook
That's a good point.
For a burst of energy, but then how to get his rear end out of the lineup so that he doesn't cost you with ridiculously boneheaded turnovers. I don't think David Adelman was going to want to continue to manage that in 25.
I don't believe it is guaranteed that he's not a Nugget next year, just because he opts out. The opt-out was always coming because it is in the player's best interest to get a little bit of a pay bump.
All right, so it would probably come down to...
It's probably 75-25 that he's gone versus he's staying.
Let me ask you this. If you were to go around and pull the core of players, Nikola Jokic... And I'm talking about after the Russell Westbrook experience. Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon. If you pulled those four players, what would they say with regards to do they want to have Russell Westbrook back or not? What would be your opinion?
Last year was a net positive for the Russ experience. You do not get out of the first round without Russell Westbrook. There are 2 games in the Thunder series that you probably don't win without him.
I don't think it was a net positive.
But it's such a crap take.
No, it's not, because you're
assuming nonsense take.
There's a player that you could have had on your roster potentially not named Russell Westbrook. So it's not potatoes. It's not apples and oranges. You're not comparing this and that.
Who's the player?
Somebody who doesn't turn the ball over. Was
someone going to win games?
Somebody that could shoot a basketball.
Literally win
Ross,
games
is there
in round 1.
somebody who can shoot a basketball that was out there?
Dude, it is such a hater take to just look at him because he is hot and cold, and he did have games where he lost you the basketball game because he can't find a way to quell the turnovers. But he literally won 2 games by himself in the LA series. You do not get to round 2. You do not get to game 7 of the OKC series without Russell Westbrook. Yes, it's frustrating. It was up and down. He lost you games, but he also was a very good version of himself this year. It was a net positive. Just because you don't like how he handles the basketball does not. I don't think it's valid because
I don't like how he
turns
shoots
the basketball
either.
Over.
His 3-point shot attempts
you mean
felt
the
like
three-pointers
turnovers.
that won a game against LA? Those ones?
So if the standard for wanting Russell Westbrook is that you survive the first round of the playoffs, and that's what you're basing this thing off for the future,
I'm not saying I want
Russell
him back
Westbrook
next year.
is the greatest player to get you out of the first round of the playoffs and then cost you in the second round of the playoffs.
That's what happens. That is the human experience. That is the Russ experience. I'm not saying I want him back.
That is the Russ experience.
I am not saying
that
I
is
want
the
him
Russ
back.
experience.
I'm not even saying that that it's probable that he's back. It is probable that he's gone. But it was an overwhelming positive based on what you paid for him in the offseason. He was a plus this year. He was.
I am so ready for the experience to be over.
It's likely over.
Thank you.
The Morning Sprint.
This whole Russell Westbrook experience isn't something that you're forced into in the 25-26 season now.
You know who you need to do the same thing? Dario Saric.
Oh, please. Please. He needs to go play overseas. Go back home.
A convenient, hey, we're both getting out of this thing.
Where's he from? He's not not Croatian, is he?
Is he Serbian?
He's not Serbian.
So then he's likely Croatian.
But there are Latvians. There's quite a
Dario Saric is Croatian.
Croat. Yep. Go play in the Adriatic
That's
League
what
and
you
be
do.
a superstar.
You're right, though. Russ did the Nuggets a favor.
Because now they have the opportunity to fit what they want to fit. You don't get much salary cap. I mean, really nothing compared to what you're paying.
No, you just get to use the mid-level exception on another player.
Which is what you need. And preferably, I want to see the Nuggets use the mid-level exception on a shooter of the basketball.
I firmly believe that the Nuggets are a worse team this past season without Russ.
Depends on who you're replacing the void of Russ with.
This next season, I believe they would be a worse team if he were to stay. Because I think you got the very most out of Russell Westbrook that you maximized that version of Russ.
All right,
and
so
you're not going to get the same thing next year.
Pro Russell Westbrook fans, like if you're in the Russell Westbrook Denver Nugget fan club, I would ask you a question and then a follow-up question. First question is this. Was Russell Westbrook in 24 and 25 an overall net positive for the Denver Nuggets?
My answer is yes.
Follow-up question. Do you want the Denver Nuggets to have Russell Westbrook on their roster in 25-26?
My answer is no.
Amen. And that's why, to me, I call the experiment not a failure. I don't think it was
a failure if
it
it
was 10
success. Years ago. It's a failure.
It wasn't a wild success. Because I think that what makes Russell different than just, we signed this guy for basically nothing, and he gave us a whole lot more than just something.
He did.
He also costs you in how you play the game and how he turns the basketball over. And then because of his stature and his L word legacy on the line at all times, there is this pressure for him to eat up way more minutes than he probably should based off of what he's worth at this stage of his career. And that's where the problem lies. I don't think he's the type of guy that's just going to be there and give you 5-6 good minutes.
No. I
any
agree.
team.
I agree. I do like I loved the energy that he brought to the team, the try-hard mentality that he brought to the team.
Right now, 8750 from the Sean Mazza text line. Positive, yes. And overall, he's the only guy that you saw consistent want to.
Now, the consistent try-hard can lead to catastrophic turnovers, but it can also lead to what he did in round one, without a doubt.
You ever heard the term the most? Like, man, Raj, you are just the most.
Yes, in a negative connotation.
Russell Westbrook is the definition of the term that young kids are using these days. The most. Man, you're just so the most. The most is the most with effort and energy, but then the most can be being a little bit of a hero on the basketball court at all times, being overly dramatic, pandering to the local crowd too much. And you know what happens with guys that are the most? You know who doesn't really ultimately end up liking those guys? Their teammates. Their teammates.
Well, hold on. Why? Is it because they would make them look bad?
Yes. And because
so then I don't care.
Well, no,
if that's the mentality, you're going to make me look bad, then grow up.
Russ does all those things in front of the crowd. He plays to the crowd.
Okay.
He plays to the masses. It's like Gladiator. You watch Caesar in the Gladiator, always playing.
I haven't seen the second Gladiator. I hear it's okay.
I haven't either.
First Gladiator was all
First
time.
Gladiator.
All time.
That was Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix, Russell Crowe.
Joaquin Phoenix was Caesar, right? Or Emperor? Is it Emperor Caesar? Whatever.
He was Emperor.
Emperor.
I can't remember his.
But it's always the playing it up like the hey, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Marcus Aurelius was the first one. Then he dies.
Yeah. That's where I think that Russell Westbrook becomes that guy that is always pandering to the crowd, always pandering even to the coach. I think Michael Malone fell victim to the act. And I think it ultimately cost him buy-in from his own locker room. That's how I read it.
Joaquin Phoenix plays Commodus. He was a
bad guy.
Son of a gun in that movie.
Bad guy.
Son of a gun in that movie.
But a very, very good acting job.
Now I'm lost. I don't want him back, but I do believe that the Nuggets were a better team this year. Now, the question, I think the overall question that you have to look at, because were very concerned with the immediate future of the Nuggets. And the immediate future of the Nuggets hinges on, can your cheaper players, your younger players, step up? Was Russ a net positive for the younger players on this team?
I don't know.
I think the answer is likely no, because you don't. And Malone, because of who he is as a coach, was going to utilize Russell Westbrook far more during the regular season. Therefore, you don't get to see the development of your younger players, the guys that Booth drafted. And again, the reason why that Malone and Booth were both fired is because they did not communicate with each other. They didn't see eye to eye. Part of that was Russ playing ahead of all the young dudes that Booth drafted. Now, he can be a net positive for the results of the team this year, right?
Right.
I think he's a net negative for the team moving forward.
I do too. Raj, you look at the roster, and now the Russell Westbrook conversation comes up, and it's not over. He might end up being a Denver Nugget in 25, 26. But if you look at this roster, give me a yes or no on fringe players that you want to see here on the roster going forward and players that you don't want to see. And I'll start here. Vlatko Chanchar.
No.
See ya.
Should have been off the team 3 years ago. His knees are disintegrated. It sucks. He was a really promising player, but no.
DeAndre Jordan.
No, he was a player
Agreed.
coach.
Zeke Naji.
Yes, because I think David Adelman's going to utilize him in a role that maximizes his value. I'll take Zeke because it's amazing. We don't know who the heck he is. Sure, I'll take Zeke because, well, he has to be on the roster. No one's going to take that contract.
Dario Saric.
See ya. Gone. Please do what Russ did. Opt out.
Okay, so that's the first category of guys that potentially are either way.
Okay.
Next one. Belief and optimism for the future for young players.
Okay.
Give me a yes or a no. Trey Alexander.
Absolutely.
Yes. Shooter.
Absolutely.
PJ Hall.
Don't know enough.
No, Sam. Deron Holmes.
Don't know enough, but the answer
Yes.
should be yes.
Yes, he was. You invested a lot.
There's a lot of people that think if Deron Holmes doesn't blow his Achilles before the season, you don't have the depth issue at the 4 and 5 this year, and there's a very good chance you get through OKC.
Spencer Jones, the Stanford 23-year-old, 6'7", whatever, right?
Yeah, filler.
Yeah, filler. Jalen Pickett.
Showed me enough to hang around.
I agree. I think he's going to become a really good shooter consistently for this team. Spot-up shooter.
Certainly showed me enough to hang around, and the same thing that I mentioned about Zeke. And again, the answer for me of keeping Zeke as a yes is he wasn't utilized the way that Booth wanted him to be utilized. Therefore, we don't really know who he is. And I think DA is going to do his best job to use that money and that player on the court. I think David Adelman utilizes Pickett way more than
Agreed.
Malone does,
Agreed.
and that will maximize Jalen Pickett.
Julian
So, yes.
Strawther, we both are in agreement.
Awesome.
Absolutely, yes.
He's
Continue to develop, get stronger. Big offseason for him so he can handle the physical demands of the position, but he's a shooter.
Main reason why you get to 7 games against OKC, you utilized him at the end of the series.
Hunter Tyson. No,
No.
I agree.
You know who Hunter Tyson feels like to me? He feels like the Syracuse kid, that Tyler Lydon. He feels like a slightly better version of Tyler Lydon. So, meh, not really.
Peyton Watson.
That's the enigma. Peyton Watson could be the fulcrum next year. If Watson takes a step forward
Offensively.
if he can be a consistent scorer.
He's got to finish at the rim. He's so vertical. He's got the length, but he just never consistently finished at the rim.
If he doesn't, then you only have a wing D guy, like a wing rebounder and shot blocker. You need a 3-and-D guy. Is he going to be the 3 guy? The answer is probably no. He struggles from beyond the arc. But if he can become a scorer, slasher, Peyton Watson is the most important. You can argue he's the most important piece of the team next year. Most important rotational and depth piece on the team.
You want to talk about bang for your buck? You want to know the salary that the last person I'll talk about that is universally would be a big yes, an emphatic yes from Nuggets Nation? Christian Brown.
You have to find a way to keep him.
$3.08 million annually. That's what his contract was as a starter on a team that made it into the second round of the NBA playoffs. Christian Braun, you got such good return on investment for that player. 15.4 points per game, 5.2 rebounds per game, 2.6 assists per game. And he was 8th in the National Basketball Association in field goal percentage, Raj. 8th, 58%.